And truthfully, this right here is my favorite kind of knife. Hello everybody, hope y'all are doing good out there. In this video we got a new knife to look at that I just found recently. This is going to be a super interesting one right here. And I'm going to have two main things going on in this video. One is going to be a simple overview and review of this knife that I've found. In the other part of this video, I'm going to be talking about my favorite kind of knives. So I'm going to go ahead and put a link down in the description, maybe in the comments also, letting y'all know when I do the strict overview of the knife. That way y'all can skip on over there if you want to. But anyways, I went to a pawn shop I like to go to a lot of times, and I really wasn't on the hunt for anything particular. I was out there with my mom and dad, and we were close by, so we just swung in to take a look. And anyways, I went inside and he had all these different knives laid out. Used ones, new ones, had some absolutely beautiful knives and had some great prices on them. And I was just looking through there to see if anything caught my eye. And I looked over on the corner, and it was one of the knives he had there that I've been looking for and wanting a while. This right here is a Case Tiny Trapper. This one right here, when I saw it in there, I thought, wow, that's nice. Because I've been wanting one of these for over 4 years. But they're really expensive a lot of times when you find them. And not only are they really expensive, you've also got the problem of Case hasn't made them constantly all the time. So that makes them more rare and also drives the value up. And when I saw this one there, he had a really, really good price on it. He had the kind of price on it where you don't even bother to argue. You know, you don't bother to haggle. I didn't. I just pulled it out and gave him what he wanted for it. Now, it was very cloudy. This knife has been carried. This knife has been used a lot. It was very cloudy from top to bottom. The bolsters and everything, the blades had a lot of wear and use on them. But nevertheless, I took it to a buffer, spent probably about 15 or 20 minutes on the buffer. Then I took Flitz polish, polished everything down, cleaned everything out, washed it out real good, sharpened the blades, waxed the handle and all that. But as you all can see, it has turned out looking really, really nice. Now, this is what Case calls the Tiny Trapper. It's a really small little knife. It's even smaller than a Case Peanut. We'll do comparisons here in a little bit. But it's a small knife, and that's what it's intended to be. Now, the other thing that caught my eye about this one, besides the fact that it's a Tiny Trapper, is the handles. You know, if y'all know, you know that those are bone stag handles. And bone stag is when Case takes a piece of bone and they tailor it to look like stag. That's exactly what's been done to this knife right here. And every bone stag knife is individual. Everyone's a little bit different. And I'll tell you, this one to me is beautiful. I mean, it's just beautiful. I don't think it could look any better than it does. One characteristic of bone stag is a lot of times you see a lot of the character in the bone. And this is a common trait of bone stag. See all the like lines and indentions and such? Those are not cracks. Don't be tricked if you're looking at one of these bone stag knives. Like that right there. That is not a crack. That's just coloration in the bone. And that's common. You're going to find that. If you don't like that, don't get a bone stag knife. In the back side, oh, it's beautiful too. Look at the way that they did these ridges. You got two main ridges. And this one on the bottom, you all can see how deep that little valley is in the bone, how deep that ridge is. It's beautiful. And some bone stag knives I've seen, I haven't liked the looks of it all. Bone stag can be very different, and they can vary a lot from knife to knife. But this one was a bone stag knife, kind of shocked me. You got two blades on this. Your main blade is going to be a clip point blade. Let me get it wiped off here. Look at that clip point. I've wanted one of these Tiny Trappers for a long time. Look how sharp the point is on it. I mean, it is as sharp as it can be. And it's beautiful. You can see this knife had a ton of scratches on it. Use scratches, not abuse, use. This knife has been carried a ton and sharpened, but whoever was doing it knew what they were doing. And this knife right here, if we look at our stamp, is a 2004. We got 6 dots. And this right here is what your knife can look like if you carry it every day, use it every day, but take care of it. Your knife can be looking like this in 21 years. Nevertheless, that's considering you take care of it. And like I said, I did some restoration, but it wasn't much. You can see the condition showing itself. Will do a before and after. I already filmed the before. I still have to film the after, but I do plan to post that so y'all can see what it looked like before. But nevertheless, you can see this wonderful sharp clip point. This clip point's very handsome, and I think it looks perfect with the handle. I love the way this knife looks. Your secondary blade is going to be a spade blade. And this is my favorite part about this knife, is the spade blades on these, in my opinion, are just so cool. If you look at that little blade there and look at it toward the handle, look how straight it is. It's just straight on. Got that nice flat cutting edge all the way up through there. You can kind of see my phone and my head in the blade there. It's reflecting so much. But, it's a great looking little blade, and it's cute, but it's still capable. It's really neat. I like the way this looks so much. And I think that particular spade blade adds to the appeal of this knife a lot. I think it looks great. They have started making this knife again recently, and you can buy a new one with a Wharncliffe blade if you want to. Here we go, 6.5-2154. 6.5 is a reference that this is what do you call a bone stag handle. Stag was 5 on Case's list. Let me show y'all here. I brought a few knives out to compare. This is an actual stag on Case Peanut. And you can see right here we've got 5220. The 5 means that this is a stag knife. Now, we got another knife here. This one right here is a tiny toothpick. This one's made out of blue bone. And you can see it says 610096. So 6 traditionally has signified, a lot of times, not always, but usually it signifies bone. And the 5 usually signified stag, as you can see right here with these two knives. Why, at the same time, when Case come out with their bone stag, they decided to make it both 6.5, right? You got both numbers in there. Also, notice 2. The 2 means that this is a 2-bladed knife. You got your spade blade and your clip blade. And then the last numbers is 154. Now, I find this pretty interesting because Case's full-size trapper, and again, we'll do a full-on comparison at the end of this video. Case's full-size trapper, the 4 1/8 inch trapper, it's the 54 pattern from Case. You can see there it's 6254. So what they did was they just put a 1 on this tiny trapper right before the 54 to differentiate it. So that right there is the difference. So yeah, this right here is a 6.5-2154. So it's got a pretty long number for a Case knife when everything's said and done. This one is stainless steel. I guess it said it, I didn't notice. Yeah, stainless steel right there. But you can see this blade right here looks really good. And one thing interesting I'll note is the guy who had this evidently used the two blades just about equally because they both had the same amount of wear scratches. And that was very interesting. But this guy knew how to use a knife. He could have buffed it a little more, but some people just don't have a buffer or really care about it that much. But nevertheless, if you take care of your knife, it might look like this many years later. Blade centering looks good on this one. Oh, the back springs have real good snap. Here we can see our brass liners. Did you all hear that snap? There we go. Now, this one does not have half stops where the Peanut does. But yeah, I've been looking for one of these so long, and to find one that just looks so nice, that's pretty exciting. I don't have my scale with me because I'm outside messing around. I've got a board on top of a concrete block out here. This was an old swing board that used to be a seat on a swing set, I believe. Nevertheless, I don't have my scale with me, so I'll probably put that in the description, how much this knife weighs, and y'all can check that out if you're curious. But before I get into my favorite kind of knife, which is a knife the way I found this one, before I get into that, for those who are just wanting to see the knife itself, let me get into the quick size comparison. So our first knife to compare is the 18 pattern Stockman. That is this one right here. It's a medium Stockman. It's around 3 5/8 inches, and you can see it's a lot larger. Next, we have the ever so popular Sodbuster Jr. This knife is again around that 3 5/8 mark or so, and you can see it's a lot larger knife than the Tiny Trapper. Next, we have our classic Tiny Toothpick, which is a really popular knife from Case. It's 3 inches closed, and it's a single-bladed knife, where this Tiny Trapper is a double-bladed knife. And you can see there's a huge size difference between these two also. I would think the Tiny Trapper might be a little stouter, but that's not to say that the toothpick is not stout for what it is. Also, probably the most interesting of these comparisons would be the Tiny Trapper versus the Case Peanut. Y'all know that at this channel, I really like this Case Peanut. I carry Case Peanuts a lot, and I find them big enough to do what I need to do every day. But how does the Tiny Trapper compare? Well, you'll notice with these main blades out that there's a huge size difference. If you think the Peanut's small, you're going to think that the Tiny Trapper is minuscule. I could have brought the 33 pattern Stockman out, because it's a small one also, but nevertheless, you can't talk forever, I don't reckon. Well, I don't know about that. Nevertheless, here we've got these two to compare. If we compare the blades themselves, I'll put them spine to spine and line them up right where the sharpened portion of the blade begins. You can see the size difference. There is a considerable size difference between these two, but not crazy. As for the handle itself, the Peanut has a larger handle, and its round bolsters on both ends, where the Tiny Trapper only has a round bolster on one end, and you can see that there is a huge length difference. The Tiny Trapper is much smaller than the Peanut. And if you think the Peanut's small, you're going to think the Tiny Trapper's really small. As for the secondary blades, the Peanut traditionally comes with this excellent pin blade. The Tiny Trapper, why, it's going to have the traditional Trapper-style spade blade. So you'll see the secondary blade on the Tiny Trapper is longer than the secondary blade on the Peanut, but that's because of the design of the style of blades they are. This little pin blade really adds a lot of usability to the Peanut, and I'm glad it's on the Peanut. I have seen a version of the Peanut called the Trapper Nut that has a spade blade, and I wonder, I don't know, is it the exact same spade blade that you'll find in the Tiny Trapper? That would be interesting to consider. Another thing is, the Tiny Trapper has no half stops, where the Peanut does have a half stop. And so will the Mini Trapper when we take a look at it in just a moment. This is also a good time to consider Bone Stag versus Real Stag. Real Stag on the Peanut on the top, Bone Stag on the bottom. The biggest difference is you can see the tooling marks on the bone, where you can't see any tooling marks on the Peanut, because they didn't have to tool it. It naturally had that design in it. But yeah, this right here is a 2010, this is 2004, so there they are together. That's pretty interesting. Now let's compare all the Trappers together. Now, I better not say all the Trappers, because I don't have every Case Trapper model. There's all kinds of them. I have some that I don't have down here. These are the 3 most popular. So this is our Tiny Trapper right here. And this next size up is what's called the Mini Trapper. Now, the Mini Trapper can sound kind of deceitful sometimes, because there's nothing really mini about it. It's a 3 1/2 inch knife, and it's the perfect size for most people to carry every day. Nevertheless, you'll notice this one is in the Bone Stag, just like our little Tiny Trapper is. This one, though, is a 2024, as you can see from this tang here. So it's 20 years newer than this one. But look at the bone on this one. It's beautiful, too. It's got a totally different design, and all of these Bone Stags are going to vary from each other. Look at all the natural lines and indentions and colorations in this bone. Pretty neat. Also, Case has started more so to make their Bone Stag wider, I believe. It seems to me like all the older ones I see were more streamlined like bone, and any of the newer ones are wider, more like stag. So that's an interesting feature. Also, I believe they're burning them more to have more of like a honey tint to them. And you can kind of see that in the comparison between these two knives right here. But as for length, you can see there is an absolutely huge difference between these two. The Mini Trapper is much, much larger than the Tiny Trapper. These two are in a whole different realm. The Mini Trapper is a good everyday carry. The Tiny Trapper is more of a gentleman's EDC when you're looking to carry something light. Now, the Mini Trapper, like the Tiny Trapper, can come with multiple secondary blades, sometimes even single blades. This particular one has the Wharncliffe blade, and I probably should have brought a regular Mini Trapper down, because they usually have a spade blade to compare. But nevertheless, this gives you a comparison of the size between these two. Just how much larger the Tiny Trapper, just how much larger the Mini Trapper is than the Tiny Trapper. Lastly, let us notice the full-size Trapper right here. This one's a red bone, but this is the classic 54 pattern. As simple, plain, as common a case trapper as you're ever going to find here. It's a great knife. 4 1/8 inches by the handle. The blade is around 3 inches or so long. That's a rough estimate right there. But if we compare these together, you'll see there is a huge size difference. You can see just how big of a difference there is. There's a ginormous difference. But what we will notice is that they're very similar. We'll talk about the handles in just a second. But it follows the full-size Trapper more than it does the Mini Trapper. For instance, it does not have half stops, just as the full-size Trapper does not. And also on the secondary blade, the spade blade, the Mini Trapper's blade cants downward, where on the full-size Trapper, it is straight in line with the handle, or at least it has been for the last maybe 20 years. And so it is here with this Tiny Trapper. You can see it's exactly following the design of the classic case Trapper. And so you can see right there how similar these two knives are. So it's really taking its design cue from the classic case full-size Trapper, and that's why I think they kept the 54 pattern as the pattern number, just adding the 1 in there to differentiate it. So here we have all 3 Trappers that I've got with me here. You'll notice they all have one main characteristic. The bottom bolster is very rounded. This makes the Trapper very comfortable in your hand. For when you're using it, this is the part that's going to be touching your hand, and it's rounded, it's soft, and it's comfortable. So I like a rounded bolster. And the top bolster is more squared off. Some other knives, like maybe the Peanut, for instance, you can see it has this rounded top bolster. But if we compare that to the Mini Trapper, you can see how square it is. And that rule is going to apply whether we're doing the Tiny Trapper, the Mini Trapper, or even the full-size Trapper. This is the classic Trapper design. It's classic in its beauty and it's traditional. So now, with all that said, let me get into the topic I was really wanting to consider in this video. And that is, what's my favorite kind of knife? Why, my favorite kind of knife is a knife that I can find used that needs a little bit of work. Ideally, it's a knife that I can walk into somewhere and find. Walk in, find for a good price, bring home, clean up, and carry. It don't have to be perfect. It don't have to be popular. It don't have to be the thing, you know. There's certain times that there's certain fads that go around, and a certain knife gets popular, a certain handle. I don't go for all that. And this is the kind of thing I like, to be able to walk in there, to see this knife, to get a good buy on it, to come home, and to clean this knife up, and now to carry it and enjoy it. That right there is my favorite kind of knife. I get to support a local business. I get to find a knife that needs a little bit of care. Somebody else may not have been able to restore it, may not have been able to get many more years of use out of it, but thankfully I was able to, and I got to. And so this right here is my favorite kind of knife. Is a knife that I find locally, needs a little bit of work that I can clean up, and that I got for a good price. Thank you all for watching. You all have a good day, and keep your knives sharp.